Made it. Well done.
First hurdle.
Yeah. So I'm from Bembridge, which is a coastal village on the Isle of Wight. We've got about 3,500 people living here, and I've lived here for about 7 years now. I was briefly a parish councillor, but I found that all far too difficult. But I did, whilst doing that, start on a climate action plan and looking at how the village could become more environmentally friendly. So having left the council with a friend, we set up Plastic Free Bembridge, tried to go plastic free, which is, yeah, what I'm going to talk about today. So my agenda covers, and I don't know how much I'm talking to the converted here, but I'm going to talk about the scale of the problem with plastic because when I started, I certainly wasn't aware of it. So I'm going to start with that, which is quite a few slides, looking at studies done by Greenpeace and Surfers Against Sewage and other statistics you can find around and about. Then I'm going to look at who the main offenders are. That's in terms of the items of plastic and also the producers of that plastic, the brands involved in the UK. I'm going to look at the Surfers Against Sewage Plastic Free Initiative and what that looks like in Bembridge, and then finish off on what you can do in your community, so how you could do something. I've got a bit on the end on legislation and national action, but I'm not intending to go into that unless anyone particularly wants me to, but I will leave it in the slides. So that was really largely taken from publications made by the Environment Agency, because there has been changes in legislation recently. Okay. So the scale of the problem is massive, really. Over 99% of plastic is made from fossil fuels. So the fossil fuel companies have found a new outlet for their for oil. Now that we're looking at being more environmentally friendly in how we heat our houses, run our cars, etc., they have to find a different market. And plastic, and particularly single-use plastic, is a very good use for oil. So 1 in 10 barrels of oil are used to make new plastic. And greenhouse gas emissions from plastic production is set to triple by 2050, which is 25 to 30% of the global carbon budget, which is massive. So it's really important that we stop producing all of this plastic. The real issue with is, we use far too much of it. We've got it all down here. And I certainly have noticed when I think about it, the amount of plastic, single-use plastic that we use is horrendous. Globally, only about 9% of it is ever recycled. It persists for hundreds of years, breaking down into microplastics and getting into the food chain. They're found everywhere, from deep oceans to in your brains. And this, on the bottom, I've got the Geneva Environment Network, which is a good place to go to find resources and statistics about plastics and the climate. So it is a really massive problem. Greenpeace did a study they had a week during March 2026, so March this year, when schools, community groups, businesses, and households counted the amount of plastic they were throwing away for a week. And then this was extrapolated out to produce figures for the whole of the UK. And an estimated 1.7 billion pieces of plastic a week are thrown away. And what sort of plastic is it? Well, sort of 82% of it are food and drink packaging. So none of which we really need to use. And some of it's cleaning and toiletries and everything else, but it's largely food and drink packaging. And what is done with it? Well, 58% of it is incinerated, which is producing even more CO2. 11% to landfill, 17% in the UK recycled. And we're exporting 14% of it, which is pretty awful, giving it to someone else to process. So this is a significant issue. There's also been another study done by Surfers Against Sewage, which is their brand audit. Oh, I'm sorry, haven't finished with Greenpeace. So yes, they say we should remove plastic packaging from fruit and veg, stop the construction of incinerators, and introduce a phase ban on plastic waste export, all of which I would agree with. But I think the first one is for me really the most important. We need to stop using it. So who are the main offenders? Well, they're these are studies you can tell by the colours, or I can anyway, from Surfers Against Sewage. So these are the single-use plastics that they found most often predominantly on our beaches because they're surfers, so that's where they look. So balloons, for example, are getting into, are found are killing seabirds because they swallow them. They're drink cups, there's food and drink packaging, plastic bottles. There's still an awful lot of plastic bags out there, even though people are using reusable bags. We still use an awful lot of plastic bags. So these are the main offenders in terms of single-use plastic items. And we're looking in this presentation with Surfers Against Sewage at reducing single-use plastics. And they ran a brand audit last year based on 2,500 beach cleans, to look at what were the pieces of plastic that they were finding on the beach. So they took everything back, and I went on one of these beach cleans and counted it basically to see who was where all this plastic was coming from. And there are just 12 household brands that were responsible for over half of all the packaging found. And this is who they are. Coca-Cola at the top. I found it quite surprising that Tesco's was so far down, but it's mostly crisp packets, bottles, sweet wrappers, this type of thing on the beaches. Surfers Against Sewage call them the Dirty Dozen, and they've got a number of campaigns going to publicise who these people are and to look at how to, to get them to use less plastic. So this is one of their campaigns that's going on at the moment. So this is sort of the main part of the presentation, really. What is the Plastic Free Initiative with Surfers Against Sewage, and what does it look like? How did we do it in Bembridge? So they have a 5-step model, which starts with working with the local council to get their assistance, and that has been really important for us in Bembridge. And then you work with local business to help them reduce their single-use plastics usage. And we're not asking them, or the majority of them, to use no single-use plastics. It's just to try and reduce the amount of single-use plastics they're using locally. inspire the local community to spread the plastic-free message, mobilize them through beach cleans, or just general cleans if you don't happen to be on the sea. Give talks, run workshops, raise awareness, make people aware of how bad for the planet these plastics are, not just in turning up as waste, but actually in the production of the plastic and increasing the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere. And then mass unwraps. We haven't done one of those yet, but I think we should. And the idea is to go to somewhere like Tesco's, who is one of our 12 big offenders, and basically unwrap all your packaging outside the store, and it's to raise awareness and of the amount of packaging that's being used. And then finally, though actually this was probably the first thing we did, is bring together a local steering group. And the idea to have on the steering group is local business leaders, and this is all local councillors, Surfers Against Sewage regional reps, and campaigners. So I'll talk about who we got involved, because this is the most difficult bit in getting it started, really, is finding people who will work with you to help you get this going. So in Bembridge, it started with beach cleans. So this is one of our beaches at Bembridge Harbour, and this is the rubbish that was collected from the beach. So during 2023, and this was largely, we run beach cleans every week in the village, but this was a specific clean that was run by Lindsay, who does this work with me and is very much the person who drives this forwards. And she was horrified by the amount of plastic she was finding on the beaches, and asked me if I would help her set up a plastic-free initiative in the village. So it was started by just realizing how much more plastic was turning up on our local beaches. So we launched in spring 2024, and we started with getting the support of the parish council. So they passed a motion in council to say that they would work with us to take Bembridge plastic free. I had been a parish councillor in the past, and we found the parish council support really helpful. So this was, I think, taken from the launch, and which was a day that was organised by the parish council with a number of local community groups and the like, showing what they were doing. So it was if you like, a community day in the village hall. This is Lindsay and I and our Surfers Against Sewage rep at the time, Channy. So we launched in the spring and set up a steering group. And on the steering group, we have a parish councillor. Quite often the parish clerk comes, but he's been a bit busy recently because he's just been elected to the county council. So he's been a bit busy doing that. And Lindsay and I and other interested people. But I would say our biggest challenge has been for Lindsay and I has been getting other people to actually be involved with us and help us out. Everyone thinks it's a good idea, but actually getting them to organise events, go and talk to businesses is much harder. So yes, we set up a steering group. We had to, as part of the initiative, run at least 2 community events in the first year, and we ran more than 2. Again, largely with the assistance of the parish council in the village hall when they were running other events, but we also ran something at the local library. So the sort of finding the places to do the events wasn't difficult, but getting anyone other than Lindsay and I to actually stand there and talk about it was quite tricky. Build a network of community allies. A community ally is a local, well, I'll talk about who they are on the next slide, actually. So we did build a network of community allies, and we got 3 local businesses, and it does have to be local, accredited as on the journey to go plastic free. And up here, this is Dave Hunt Tai Chi. So they can be any size, and this is a very small business. And then we got awarded plastic-free Bembridge status in May last year, and this is us getting our award with my dog in the foreground. So that was quite nice. If you look at who our plastic-free businesses were, so the number of businesses you have to take plastic-free depends on how big your community is. So like I said, we're 3,500 people. So it would be entirely different if it were a large population. You'd need a lot more businesses to take plastic-free, and you would need more people to organise that with you. So you can go from a bronze award, which is relatively straightforward. You just have to get rid of 3 pieces of single-use plastic within your organization, within your business, to a silver award where they ask you to get rid of 2 of those main offenders. So that we had like at the top, the main offenders, and then gold awards where you're asked to help out more on events, beach cleans, product launches for the organization, and also get involved in a national campaign. So in this case, we've got our local barbers who are over here, who she's a single, she runs it on her own and uses reusable cups and lunchbox, refill products from our other gold business, which is the Serum, and wrote a letter to our MP for the national campaign last year to end plastic pollution. And the Serum are a refill shop over here. So they're a local shop in the village. So they were, not surprisingly, already largely plastic free. And you don't have to get rid of 3 pieces of plastic that you're using at the moment. You can say, well, I stop, you can look at pieces of plastic that you got rid of in the past. So it's retrospective, if you like, because it would have been very difficult actually for the Serum to find single-use plastics that they were actually using to get rid of because they weren't using any. So yeah, they do refills of products within their business. So, and I have a holiday let business, which is really part of my pension. And I've just got bronze award for that by I've taken more than 3 pieces of single-use plastic out. But for me, for the holiday let business, it was largely soap and the soap containers, that type of thing, for which I used refills and things you do washing up with. So, because obviously I don't use, if you like, products like, I don't buy food for the business, I just let it out. So we needed quite a large number of community allies, and we thought that was going to be quite difficult, but actually it's very easy for an organisation to become a community ally. So down here, we're looking at media, we've got a number of media outlets, all of which who've written articles on what we were doing. So Lindsay would write a press release and send it around to the local press, and then they would publish it. So that means on the White Island Echo and the county press. We also work closely with Greenpeace. The library became a community ally. We've got a lot of community allies, and a lot of them are actually press. So they're community spaces like the Village Hall, which we use, and Bembridge Library, which we've used for events. Community groups, we actually haven't got many community groups involved. I just did a talk recently to the WI, so we could probably sign them up as a community ally. Local schools, which is there's a lot of assistance in for local schools for things they can do within the school, which are age appropriate, depending on whether it's a primary, secondary, or secondary school, to become a plastic-free school. And then events, which would be fairs, festivals, that type of thing that go on within your local community. So that would be within, in our case, within the village. And then over here, we've got what is actually a national business, Hertford Care. It's care homes, but in the village, we've just got the Elmston Inver House as 2 care homes. They couldn't become a plastic-free business because they're not a local business, they're a national business. So they became a community ally and took the plastic-free pledge, which was to remove 3 pieces of single-use plastic from day-to-day activities, which in their case were aprons, hot drinks cups, and water cups, and commit to a stance on single-use plastics in their communications and raise awareness. So they're very keen on working on going plastic free, but I wouldn't say on working with us, because finding people to work with us has been our biggest challenge. So last year, Surfers Against Sewage ran a People versus Plastic campaign in the build-up to the Global Plastics Treaty negotiations, which were happened in 2025, which unfortunately did not come to any agreement on reducing the use of plastics, which is very sad because it's important that we do that. But we as a group were heavily involved alongside Greenpeace in this campaign, and this is a local artist. She created Dave the Octopus from plastic on Bembridge Beach. He's actually called Stinky Dave because they made the mistake of not washing all the plastic before he was built. So this was taken around the island to raise awareness of the Global Plastics Treaty and plastic pollution, and it made very much a talking point for families and children because he's eye-catching, if a little smelly. This year, we've built a seahorse. Actually, this area here, this is Bembridge Lifeboat Station, and to the right of the lifeboat station here, we've got seagrass meadows. And seahorses, you find them in seagrass, that's where they live. So this seahorse was made from rubbish found on Bembridge beaches. And we'll use him this year to go around as a talking point to talk to local people and visitors on our beaches about the problem with plastic pollution. Oh, and they also went to Parliament to meet our MP. So that's our MP over there on the left. So these are the sorts of things that we've been doing in Bembridge. So what can you do in your community? Well, I put this up here. This slide tends to move around a bit. So it's looking at local businesses that we've used. So buy your fruit and veg in brown paper bags, not in plastic containers. use refill shops. This is a local refill shop in Ryde to refill containers with rice, pasta, whatever it might be. Or in this case, another refill shop to refill them with things to cleaning products, which is what this largely is. Or in my case, I went online. So these are all online products because I'm running a business and it was cheaper for me to go online and buy these refills, which then get, you know, when I've used my 5 litres, which will take me a while, I can ask for a, you know, they will send me a box and I can send it back to them and they reuse it. So everything gets reused. These dishcloths are made from wood pulp. There's no plastics in them, and the same with the sponges, which I've got some on my chair at the moment. So it's a question of finding alternatives for me at a cost-effective price, which I've pretty much managed to do. So shop locally online and look at buying alternative products that don't use single-use plastics as in order to reduce your usage. I've actually found that much harder on the island than I did when I lived in Maidenhead, and that's because we don't have the same range of retailers here. It was very easy for me there to go and buy my fruit and veg from the market. It's not nearly as easy here to find an alternative to Sainsbury's and Tesco's, who use a lot of single-use plastics. So what can you do as individuals? You can use that plastic bag, reuse, refill, and recycle. So you need to research alternative plastic-free products in your area and find local businesses that don't use single-use plastics. You can go to the Surface Against Sewage website and see if you've got a local plastic-free community. And if you have, you can connect with it and maybe reinvigorate it, get it, because it's quite easy once you've gone plastic-free, once you've started this process, to lose heart, if you like, and not keep working on it. I think that's something that could easily happen to us. So you could maybe reinvigorate your local plastic-free community if you have one. Raise awareness of the problems with single-use plastic and find motivated volunteers, which has been quite difficult for us to find other people to work with us in order to achieve more and potentially set up a new plastic-free community. If you don't have one. So that's sort of where I was going to end. Oh, no, this is where I was going to end. So this is a reminder of the 5-step model. Get your town or parish council to support you. That was probably the most useful thing for us. Create a local steering group. We didn't get, you know, Surface Against Sewage say, get local businesses on the steering group, get influential people on the steering group. I wish. Wouldn't that have been nice? It was quite difficult to get in a village anyway, to get people engaged. Work with local businesses to reduce single-use plastic, inspire local communities so that next year, we'd quite like to look at the village fair and get them involved in trying to reduce single-use plastic usage at the fair, for example. That would be a nice thing to do. Community spaces. And we do need to work with our local school, but as we're all ancient retard and moved here in our 60s, we don't actually have very good links with the schools. But that could well be different in your community. So there you are, mobilise them. So, yeah, that's it. Any questions?
Um, well, I mean, everything you've said is excellent, and I think the biggest thing is what gets me, to be honest, is because I've done similar sort of thing to what you've just uh, performed, let's say, but much better than than I did or am doing. But I think the biggest thing is supermarkets, because it's when you go out shopping and you go to a supermarket and the choice of actually buying anything that's not in plastic is just so small, and it's really getting to the the top of the the decision makers of the supermarkets to actually change their ways, because most of the time you haven't got a choice, if you want to buy products from the supermarket. I mean, that's what even the organic produce, say in Waitrose or something, is still covered in plastic. So
Yeah.
fine. Really annoying. I mean, I had two boxes, organic boxes, that come Riverford and Able and Cole, two companies where the plastic is absolutely minimal. And that's, but I mean, one of the comments I had through my July, my plastic free July thing was that, well, that's okay for you, but you can afford it, I can't. And so
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's people buying the cheaper stuff that is always covered in plastic. Um,
So that's for me been the hardest thing since I've come here, because when I lived in Maidenhead, I used to buy all my fruit and veg from the market, and it wasn't expensive and it wasn't in plastic. And then I'd go to Sainsbury's and buy other stuff. But here, if I go to the farm shops, it's more expensive. I mean, quite often a lot more expensive. So yes,
mm,
I completely agree that it is very difficult because it has to be cost effective. It has to be at a good price.
yeah, yeah,
So that is very difficult. If you look at the what I've got next is legislation. So if you look at the extended producer responsibility that has just come into effect. So the idea of that was that producers with turnover of over £1 million, which is, all the big brands have massive turnovers, need to pay fees based on packaging, single-use packaging they've used of the previous financial year. And then that money goes to local councils for recycling.
mm,
So, and the logic behind that isn't to get money off Tesco's because of to help with recycling. It's actually to encourage them to find different ways of packaging their produce. But whether it will actually have that effect or not is, the only way to make them change is for it to, one, become more expensive for them to do it, and two, to tarnish their brand. Um,
yeah. I
so
mean,
it is
I
difficult,
did
yeah.
think. I did think about sort of what you said earlier, actually, about the plastic, buying the plastic products at supermarkets and then either at the checkout or just outside to actually take all the plastic off and just leave it with them, And I don't know if that's whether you'd get arrested for that, or I'm not quite sure,
Well,
because you're buying the product and not the packaging, aren't you? When
yeah. So Surfs Against Sewage call that a mass unwrap, and they have a process for doing it legally. So if you go to their website and say you'd like to run a mass unwrap, they will help you with how to do it, what's involved, and how to not get into trouble, basically. So, and I think that's something that I would like to do here, but I would quite like to have another volunteer involved to help us.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the things, that to actually get people motivated to do
Yes.
something is very difficult, because we are very, most of us aren't, we don't like doing that sort of thing, we don't like sort of demonstrations and shouting and all that sort of thing. And I
Yeah.
think that, so if you're absolutely right, that if you can say to people, well, don't worry, you're not going to get arrested because we're going to do it in a certain way, then that's very, very helpful.
Yeah. And they will help you with that. They have a process for doing a mass unwrap that is, as I said, not going to get you into trouble. So just go to their website and get in contact with them.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay, thanks for that. And thank you, Ali, for a very interesting talk. Frank's got a question.
No, just a couple of observations in Scotland. We're out of sync with a lot of the other good stuff that's happening. So we're still trying to build more incinerators to get people to stop using landfill, despite the fact that incinerators are more harmful than landfill, and because they're plastics oil based, releases more noxious chemicals. But that's official government policy, and we're kind of stuck with that. And similarly, I think one of the challenges we found is that because plastic was one of the first things to have recycling, so you've got bins for your PET bottles, people feel they're doing their bit by recycling plastic, regardless of how much actually gets recycled. So you take your empty crisp packets and bread bags and put them in the appropriate bin at Tesco, and that's it, you've done your job. I just wondered if you'd done any observations or how you'd help to shift people from saying, oh no, but it's okay, I do the right thing with my plastic, to actually saying, just stop having plastic.
So I think this is all about awareness building. So, I wasn't aware of it when I started this. I sort of knew that plastic wasn't great, but didn't really know why. So I think one of the things that now that we've had the first step, if you like, of becoming a plastic-free community, for me, one of the most important things for us to do now is to build awareness. So that's why I put this together, where I took it to the local WI, for example, and to a meeting, and it's just talking to people, not about what we've done, but about why single-use plastics are bad, why we need to stop using them, and that it is causing, it's a significant factor in global warming. It really is bad news, this single-use plastic. And we didn't used to need it when, 50 years ago, we had alternatives because we hadn't yet learned really to make cheap plastic. And we need to go back to the alternatives, which is, putting your vegetables in brown paper bags or whatever it might be. But we need to stop creating. Recycling is not the solution. And we need to get people to understand that. And the only way you can get people to understand that is go out and talk to them.
Funnily enough, one of the things that I've found that has the most reaction is sort of when you say to someone that someone's got dementia, and there's an awful lot of people, that seems to be a bit of an epidemic. Most people that you talk to have got someone somewhere that has got dementia, and research has said that there's 10 times the amount of plastic in someone in their brains of someone with dementia than a normal person, and that really shocks people, and that sort of motivates them, I think, to actually listen more or to sort of go into it. But then research recently has also said that they're not sure about the methods used to get that sort of information. So you can't use it as 100% truthful argument, let's say. But I mean, I still say it to people, just because that it could be true. Yeah. So yeah.
It's unlikely to be causal. It could well just be, that something else is causing the dementia, and that the two things are correlated.
Yeah. I suppose sometimes you've got to sort of think outside the box, I guess, to get people sort of almost shocked into sort of, because we know that the problem is there. Most people ignore it or don't know, obviously, about it, and just carry on buying the stuff, as I said earlier, because there isn't the choice. And it's how I persuaded people to sort of use farmers markets and say vegetable boxes and things like that. But as you said earlier, it's kind of like preaching to the converted with things like this. But it's very good for us to sort of go away and then try out things that you suggested. And me, obviously, being a counsellor and being on the council, I've just Sarah's no doubt listening, to actually get to a much wider audience through council meetings and sort of parish councils throughout our borough, hopefully.
Yeah, so we've done a number of things. We normally have, well, the last few years we've been at a couple of the parish, not parish meetings, but the events that the parish councils organise. So the parish council organised an environment day in April where a number of local organisations turned up and talked about what they were doing. We were one of them, and we talked about plastic-free communities, and there were a number of others there. So the support of the parish council, because we don't have any money, has been really instrumental in helping us do this. I mean, we could, yeah. So it's really helped.
Dave's got a question.
Yeah, sorry, a couple of little points. I run an environmental charity, and I work alongside Helen, who's on the thing from Weymouth Town Council. Plastic is a huge issue, but I think the trouble with a lot of this is you're confused. The things about plastic-free communities, there's a lot of it you sort of dip it into single-use plastics, and then plastics. I mean, virtually everything's plastic these days. So it's a good, if you get rid of single use, it's very confusing to go plastic free, because some things obviously have to be plastic. I mean, there's issues in society that are overwhelming, things like car tires. We had a meeting the other day about particulates, and it turns out that the plastics from car tires are now getting worse than the pollution from the engines. So the whole plastic issue can be overwhelming. So it's very hard to break it down into single things, because obviously the presentation started off with plastic production and things like that, but that's not just single-use plastics. And no. I think there's also the danger of preaching to the converted. A lot of people are in an echo chamber, and you think everyone thinks like yourself, whereas on the whole, I think most of society don't really care. And I've been doing this for 5 years now, and I just think most people just do things what's easiest. So they use recycling bins outside their house because their big bin's not big enough. They don't do it because they really want to recycle. If it was that simple, when we'd have public recycling bins, but we can't have them because people just put rubbish in them and things like that. So there's not really a will to do things. And also, I think, like, if you have litter picks, and we have litter picks which are probably the best attended in the area, and we have like 25, 30 people, but we have a population of 70,000 people. So when you think, oh, it's great, we've got 20 people turn up, this is brilliant. The rest of the 70,000 people haven't bothered to make the effort. So I think things like getting Tesco's to change is far more important than having a shop that does refills. It's nice to have it there. We have one in Weymouth, but the reality is most people buy things from Aldi, Lidl's, Tesco's, Sainsbury's, and getting Tesco's to change one product from plastic to paper would probably do more to change the amount of plastic used in society than everything we could do ourselves, because of the amount, if you scale it up. And I said, there's also, I think, a problem with demonising plastic. Some plastics plastic is actually quite a good product. I mean, it doesn't break down and last for ages. So some things are very good as long as you have a circular society for plastic. And we recycle plastic, fishing stuff and stuff like that, which obviously can't be paper because it has to be dissolved. So I think if there's a circular economy for things, yeah, it'd be more useful. But because I think, I mean, we deal with everything from litter upwards. But when you think we recycle fishing net, and the amount of fishing net we recycle well outweighs crisp packets. So by recycling that now, we've done more to stop plastic in the environment than we would cutting down people refilling their jars. I think it's just very hard to look at the whole bigger picture, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, and I don't, we're looking at you need to look at it from a top-down and a bottom-up approach. So plastic-free communities is very bottom-up. It's just individuals and communities doing what they can, because you need to tackle these problems from both ends of the spectrum. It's essential that they're tackled from a top-down approach at a government level, and also to get, which is trying to push retailers. So this extended producer responsibility is the government trying to get retailers to change the way they do things and to find alternatives to plastic packaging. And this is single-use plastic. You know, I'm only talking about single-use plastic. I know there are a lot of other plastics in use and, you know, in medicine and elsewhere. But it's like you have to start somewhere.
I know, I do agree with you, but I think sometimes you get mixed messaging. I mean, for our councils, we've had an issue with incinerator business, and the local council keeps going on how good we are at recycling, and it gives the impression that recycling is a good thing, which in some respects it is, but in other respects it's just greenwashing for the plastics industry, because people think they can buy as many plastic drinks bottles from Coca-Cola. I mean, Coca-Cola produces 2 billion plastic bottles in the UK every year. There's no way that there's a market for 2 billion recycled plastic bottles. So there's just a lot of mixed messaging, especially from councils. And if you can't believe the council themselves, it's very hard to know where to get the accurate information from. So, I mean, most people don't realise that incinerators, I mean, our council keeps saying we're reducing recycling, but to incinerate the waste, because we incinerate all our residual waste, that the company that takes it has to have a certain level of plastic in the waste to maintain the calorific value. So the system cannot, if we recycled everything, the whole system would break down. But councils don't tell you that. They try and tell you, oh, we're doing recycling, you're doing very, very well. But at the same time, they want plastic to burn. But so it's just mixed messaging. And also things like litter bins and things like that. The amount of litter we throw away that's just burnt because the councils don't recycle. I don't think there's a single council in the UK that recycles its litter. It's all just burnt as residual waste.
Yeah, in Uttlesford, where I live, they're just celebrating opening a new incinerator and saying how green it is. I doubt it somehow. Sarah has got a question.
Very, very interesting. And I'm from the same borough as Steve. We actually have under the Borough Council Climate Change Forum, and hopefully Steve will agree with me on this, that we'll take some ideas from this forward to our next meeting. We had a meeting on Monday, but we've done very little in our actual parish town area. And once this is online, I'm going to encourage people to use it. Now, also I'm within Kent. I think it's important that we put to our Association of Local Councils as well. And it's I'd like to thank you for bringing all this information together. You've got some very, very useful pointers on legislation. And I'd like to thank you for your presentation. Is there a chance that we could have the slides up on our together with the recording?
I think the slides will be with the recording.
Lovely. Yeah. Excellent. Thanks very much.
Yeah, not a problem.
Thank you. Keep up the good work.
I agree with you, Sarah.
Yeah, well, Steve, we must have a little get together, a coffee somewhere.
I think so. I think so. We need to move forward with this, don't we?
We do. Yeah. I'll give you an email. Sorry, everybody else, but as we're from the same borough, we need to start a pincer movement.
Absolutely.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
I've got a question for Ali. Since you started this, have you seen any reduction in the amount of plastic waste you're seeing on the beach?
I don't know. I'd have to ask Martin, who runs the parish council, actually also runs the beach clean. So he'd be able to tell me if there's less. I think it's unlikely. I doubt we're having that much of an impact. You know, it would be nice to think that we were, but, you know, most of the plastic on our beaches is... Where does it come from? Where's it coming from? A lot of it's visitors. So, you know, you need to get this message out to people who come to visit the island. But with my hat on as someone who runs a holiday let business, I don't want to be telling people that they can't use single-use plastic in my property because they'll just go and stay somewhere else. It is difficult to know how you can have a significant impact, but
you've hit the nail on the head there as well.
Yeah.
In terms of sort of, there's always a cost. There's always, to do something like you just said. If we didn't use plastic, then it's costly in other ways. And again, it goes back to people power that will kind of fight against the supermarkets once the message is so real to people that they will have to do something about it. But that's the thing. They're so all powerful, aren't they? Supermarkets,
so
the buyers.
I wonder if so. I've only just recently, like in the last few weeks, moved the business, my holiday let, towards plastic free. So I'm using plastic free products, which means that people who come to stay will now see that they've got plastic free dishcloths and plastic free this and plastic free that, and I wonder if it will encourage them to do the same thing at home. Because they'll see that these products actually work. Do you see what I mean? So
yeah, one of the things that I did in this exhibition last week, I had a table laid out with all the like plastic toothbrushes, sort of dental floss, you name it, washing up cloths, and then the alternative all in a row in front, so that you've got bamboo toothbrushes, you've got all the alternatives, and you've got a company called Seep, you may have heard of them, that do sort of washing up sponges, sort of based on vegetable produce, whatever, and a lot of other products like that actually work because we use them ourselves. And so I think if you've actually given people an alternative straight away with companies that actually can sort of send you these things, or companies that you can buy these products from, I think that will have quite a big impact, because that created quite a lot of interest at the event. It's showing people that there are alternatives, I think. And
great idea.
Across.
Helen's got a question.
Can't hear you.
Hello. I'm, as Dave mentioned earlier, I'm a town councillor, Weymouth Town Council. As he said, we have 70,000 population in the winter. As you can imagine, in the summer we've got a big Long Beach and harbour and everything else. So we possibly double that when we've got loads of visitors. And what we have done in recent years is install water refill points along the beach, so that people can refill their bottles, in the hope that they won't buy single-use plastic from vendors. But what we have failed to do, in my opinion, is actually communicate this widely enough. And I think we can do a lot more than we have been doing. And one of my projects is to try and get notices in every car park where visitors arrive, to say that we try and use as little plastic as possible, and please refill your bottles, and please take your litter off the beach, and there are plenty of recycling facilities, etc., etc. And I think we have to keep persisting with this communication, because we have to be in people's, well, not in people's space, we just have to repeat the message around the town as many times as we can, so people realise and think about it. Because we have refill points on our public toilets. We're slowly refurbishing all of our public toilets, and they will all have a water refill point outside, because we've got water there, and all of our buildings have got solar panels and everything like that. But we want people to know that we're doing that, and we have an expectation from visitors that they respect that, and they try and leave the place in the state they wish to find it when they arrive. And just to put this all in context, we as a council pay £250,000 a year to keep the beach clean. Now, sorry?
It's 300 this year.
Is it 300 this year, Dave? Thank you for that correction.
The inflation for you.
So what we're doing is we're using our residents' council tax to clear the beach of the rubbish that our visitors are leaving. And to my mind, that really irritates me. But we need to educate people. They need to know. And we're very, very lucky because we're a large enough council. We're I think the third largest town council in the country. So we have a dedicated sustainability person now, and we can take things like this to her and say, how do we progress this, and what can we do, and which committee can we go to that might have a bit of money that we can direct toward this? Because I despair at the people's attitude to places they visit and the plastic and everything. But I am really pleased the information you've imparted about the extended producer responsibility, and I will be looking more into that and seeing where we can hold people to account locally with that bit of legislation and wave it under their nose and say, did you know you should be? Because when it says about giving stuff to councils or paying councils for helping dispose of stuff, that really
That's
appeals.
where all the money is supposed to go. And the deposit return scheme, which starts next October 2027, I'm old enough that I used to take drink bottles back to the local pub. I think we probably got a penny or twopence for them.
It all added up, didn't it?
So, remember those days?
How's with the pocket money?
That was my pocket money, yes. But you will get, the deposit return scheme is going to be a 20p refundable deposit on drinks containers, which is a lot. And what I found interesting this was from the Environment Agency's press and media site, was that groceries, other than those in inner cities, must act as a return point. They're all going to have return points for the stuff they're selling. The reason that inner cities isn't, I would imagine, is that they can get dispensation if there's somewhere next door that it can go, because there's so many places you could take it back in inner city. But yeah, I was thinking when I first read about the deposit return scheme, we'll go down to our local retail outlet in the village and ask them if they'll become one. But actually, they're going to have to become one. They're not going to have any choice.
Thank you. Dave's got another question.
Yes. I could go about the deposit return scheme because I'm a bit of a skeptic. But going back, I mean, unfortunately, my organisation has the word litter in our name. So there's a lot of crossover between litter and plastic free and that sort of thing. But I think there should be a lot of people tend to concentrate more on the cleanliness type things. It's like with Helen said, cleaning the beach. As long as the beach is clean, people don't really care as long as it's gone. One of my bugbears in Weymouth is that we have hundreds of bins along the seafront and they'll fill up every single day, and our waste all goes off to Sweden to get burnt. But people don't care because it's not seen, it's disappeared, they don't see it. So I think, last year, a couple of times I shared pictures of like litter bins overflowing with rubbish, to try and put the message across. And the message people got somehow was that we need more bin collections and bigger bins. They didn't seem to put two and two together and thought perhaps they need to make less waste. So I think there's two things. I mean, a lot of people do beach clean and litter pick and everything, but a lot of people do it because it makes the environment look tidy. They don't really care. So when we first started, one of our main things was trying to recycle. We now recycle virtually 90% of the stuff we collect from the beaches and stuff like that, as well as other recycling products. Even things like towels, we recycle, we wash them and send them to Monkey World. So you can recycle a lot more. But I think there's that thing, people tend to think, well, if the beach is clean, everything's hunky-dory and it's fine, but we need to stop making the stuff. And going back to the Isle of Wight, is it cleaner thing? A lot of the waste on the Isle of Wight and other beaches comes from the sea. So even if we clean our beaches, you get international waste washing up from ships, you get fishing waste and stuff like that. And going back to the legislation changing, we've noticed in the last 2 years that there's far less shipping waste. We used to get thousands and thousands of plastic drinks bottles washing up on the beaches. But since MARPOL and the International Maritime Organization has started cracking down on the legislation over the last 2 years, we've noticed a reduction. So enforcement and legislation does serve a purpose, and some things do reduce. But like I say, it needs to come from further up, I think.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I can't see any more questions. So I'd just like to thank Ali for her very interesting talk. Thank everyone for attending. And I'm very much hoping Graham will be back next week to host the next session. Anyway, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Seeing you all again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.